Alexia Putellas gets subbed off. She's basically walking to her team bench, and Vilda puts his hand out to sort of give her like a high five, and she literally slaps it away. She pushes him away, and that went Twitter viral. And I just thought that is a summary of the situation.
Well, if I want to think about now Spain going into the finals versus England, who has a top-notch manager, we'll get into Wiegman here in a minute. I wonder if this is kind of like a little bit of like their weakness, and that's not their fault. That's just the situation that they're dealing with. And even after they won against the Netherlands, Vilga came onto the field to celebrate with them, and no one celebrated with him. Which is kind of this, like, you almost feel like this Spanish women's side is boycotting this situation with their manager. And there's been rumors and, articles in the media saying that he's created this very toxic, controlling environment with the Spanish women's side, that they have like situations where they'll go shopping, and when they come back, he like checks their shopping bags to see what they bought, or they have to leave their doors open, the doors to their room open to make sure that like no one else is in their room aside who they're rooming with. Just when you're talking about a senior national team with very mature women and women who are there, this obviously is a team that gets along. And being a woman and probably being coached by a man, you're like, this is crossing the line, right? So they've kind of boycotted him in this sense. They've wrote, 15 senior women's national team players on the Spanish side wrote emails to the federation, the Spanish Federation, saying, we want this to be addressed. And, we want to make sure that we're heard because we don't like what's happening within our program, and it's become very toxic. And I believe that Vilda's dad is the current head of the Spanish Federation's women's department. So there wasn't much success in kind of getting Vilda out. And the women's side hasn't had much backing in that sense. But you're kind of seeing this real-time boycott happening at the World Cup, which I personally haven't seen something like this. But I've never seen a player like so openly snub their manager. So you have to wonder, is this something that's going to affect the Spanish side, or do they keep doing what they're doing? And I'm assuming they're just playing for each other, playing for their country, playing for themselves and win. But it does make me wonder, like, is this going to be a reason why Spain can't take down someone who's from across the board, like England, so strong, with such a confident, experienced, successful manager on their side who might know how to handle a situation better in a final than clearly Vilda's doing with his side, because his players have no respect for him. And I don't know the situation, but if the rumors are true, then you got to feel for this women's side.
Oh, I totally feel for this Spanish women's side. Like, I can't even imagine being on a national team like this in the World Cup, let alone getting all the way to the end of the World Cup and not respecting your manager, not having that support. That's got to be extremely, extremely difficult. And I truly think what's holding this team together is the players' love and respect for each other, and just holding themselves together, trying to play and represent their country the best they can, but also make it known on this more political side, if you would. So it's tough. And then it also brings the question of the Spanish team. They've obviously done exceptional at this World Cup. And what does that mean now? Like, people might think, oh, that's up to the manager, right? The management's taking them this far. So is the manager going to stay? Are they going to go? But it's like, no, this is the team that's doing this, that's getting them through, and their will. So I think there's a bit of a difference. But again, this team, they've got themselves obviously to a fabulous position this tournament. But when it really comes down to the final match, the World Cup final, I truly believe that's where I think England has that little bit more of an edge with the togetherness. But at the same time, maybe Spain might think, oh, they have something to prove. We're doing it ourselves together. So I think it can work both ways.
It's very interesting. It'll be very interesting to see which direction it goes in for Spain. And I hope for these women who have taken this very public stance against their manager that they're able to succeed. Someone like Putellas to do that, who's a Ballon d'Or winner, who's one of the most visible female athletes in this sport. And even across the board for men, like, everyone knows who, if you watch football, you know who Alexia Putellas is. For her to do that, that's a statement. Something's gone wrong. That she's a very mature, experienced player. So I hope that Spain continues their success. A lot of great players on that team. Bonmati, Paraluelo, we mentioned her, Putellas, Carmona with that screamer at the end, Redondo. There's just so many players. It's just, I hope that this drama that everyone seems to be talking about doesn't weigh down on them in the biggest game of their lives. Like, I hope Vilda, who's been the coach of this national team for Spain since 2015, I don't know what's going on, but put your ego aside. I don't know, like,
this is the World Cup final.
It's the World Cup final, know? So it's very unfortunate to kind of see these women dealing with that. And I do hope that if they are able to win this Women's World Cup, there's this massive public stance that they take and say, we did this on our own. And unfortunately, if they don't win it, take a stand for themselves and saying, like, we should have never had to deal with that in what could have been historic for our program and our country.
Yeah. Either way, I truly think, these women have spoke out before. They're being very public.
Yeah.
I think right now they're just focusing on what needs to be done for the final, but I would personally love to see them come out with something after the World Cup.
Me too.
Maybe once they've had a little bit of time to digest it, just to see what happens. But, oh my gosh, again, like, they might never make it to a World Cup final ever again. You never know, right? I mean, they might not. You never know what's going to happen. Of course, now in the game of football, in the next 4 years, we could have a very, very different final with the way that the game is progressing. But my heart goes out to them, because to have this aspect in the back of your brain when you're going into one of the biggest moments of your entire life, it sucks, frankly. And that's not an eloquent way to put it, but it really does suck. So
yeah, sometimes it's plain and simple, and I agree with you. And I just hope that they keep doing what they're doing, because whatever they have done has gotten them this far. And I just now, it'd be great to see either country, England or Spain, kind of seal the deal. The storylines are there for either country. They've worked so hard. It hasn't been pretty in every single game for either Spain or England, but they're probably the two best teams in this tournament, I would have to say, in terms of the way that they're playing. So we'll see what happens.